So it's world's toughest mudder. So it's Tough Mudder. They put on the obstacle course races all over. And this one is a 24-hour race. It's a 5-mile loop. You do as many times as you can. I did it last year, and it was in Las Vegas, on Lake Las Vegas. So they are getting you in and out of the water.
What time of the year was that?
It was November. So it starts off, and like they just did it this year. This year was in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta. They moved it. I think it had been in Vegas for 6 years. But so it starts out, and it's really hot, and you are in the desert. But if you aren't in some type of wetsuit cover by the time night falls, most people will end up with hypothermia, something like that. You're running a good portion of it in a wetsuit, and you are just doing a 5-mile loop over and over. And they kind of start rolling on how they open up the obstacles. So the first couple of loops, you're just running. Then you have a little pit that you can come in, have a pit crew. They'll give you, whatever your fuel is, and then you have to come in and make some changes. But it's 24 hours, and it's one of the hardest things I ever did.
I'm Taylor Somerville, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast today. This episode is brought to you by Waypoint TV. Waypoint TV has so much cool stuff on there and more being added every single day. Recently, they've started doing written content, blog articles, how-tos, putting a whole how-to section up there with videos and all kinds of cool stuff. Go to waypointtv.com and check it out. In addition to the 70-plus producers with over 2,000 episodes on Waypoint TV. Now there's written content. You can see so much stuff, learn a bunch of stuff. As far as what we've got going on around here, we've got a bunch of new blog articles that have come out on saltwaterexperience.com. We've been updating the IGTV, Instagram TV, and putting some stuff up there. People seem to like knots, entire shows, parts of shows, other little pieces of educational content, playing around with Instagram TV. I don't know what to think about it. I think that it can be pretty cool. We did have one video that really took off there, so I see that there's some potential that a lot of people are watching that way. So we're going to start putting some other stuff up there. If you've got suggestions of stuff that you'd like to see on our Instagram TV, and send me a email at podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. Let me know what you think. Today's episode, very, very interesting episode. I don't know, maybe about 4 years ago, I kind of came across let's just say it's a method of breathing, and it's called the Wim Hof Method. And if you don't know who Wim Hof is a guy that he's really an incredible guy. And when you first hear him speak, if you don't know much about him, he almost sounds like a crazy man because he's making all these claims about the way that his breathing technique and exposure to cold has affected his body. Turns out that everything that he says has been backed by science. This guy's been studied by virtually everyone that would be interested in this type of research. When I learned that, I started learning more about him and what he's been able to accomplish and how he's been able to affect his own body, doing things like affecting his autonomic immune system. So he one time got injected with E.coli bacteria and then suppressed this response from his body through his breathing, this particular method that he has. In addition to that, there's cold exposure involved in this. And I've been doing this for about 4 years. My wife thinks it's so weird. So do a lot of my friends. But that's really the key to the whole thing. I try a lot of different things, and some work and some don't. I keep what works. I throw away what doesn't. And this is one that, despite how weird it looks, how weird it sounds, I have experienced tremendous benefits from, both on a physical side and a mental side. Really, really big benefits. And I start every day. Most every day I start with the Wim Hof Method. Because I've had such good experience with this one particular breathing method, I have researched more and more breathing methods. And that led me to find today's guest, because one of the people that are proponents of incorporating breathing into your daily routine, into your training, is one of the most famous and best big wave surfers in the world, Laird Hamilton. Laird is very accomplished. He's also just a little bit older than me, and if you've ever seen the guy, he in his 50s, he is in remarkable condition, and he is able to do things that people much younger than him have a lot of trouble with or find it impossible. And Laird has been able to keep his body healthy and maintain his fitness and his mobility and his ability to surf these big waves much longer than anyone would expect. And he does it through nutrition and a certain workout protocol that he has, and incorporating this breathing and some mobility and other things that he does. And he has allowed people to participate in this through this program that he has called XPT with his wife, Gabby Reese, and also Brian McKenzie. And so I learned about this and found it interesting and kind of looked at what they were doing and followed the XPT website and just kind of learning a few things here and there. And they announced one time that they had just had this coaching seminar where they certified some coaches. And one of the first ones, the coach of the month, was our guest today. And his name is Taylor Somerville. And so I looked at Taylor and looked him up, and turns out he's in the South. So I thought, well, maybe there's an opportunity that I could hook up with Taylor, maybe train with him, learn some stuff, because I've tried to get to some of these XPT seminars, and they're either in Hawaii or California or Montauk, and just haven't been able to make it work with my schedule. So I thought maybe I could hook up with Taylor. And when I first made contact, had a great conversation with Taylor. Turns out we have a lot of things in common. He and I both went to the University of Alabama, and as we started talking, Duck Key came up. And Taylor has spent a lot of time on Duck Key as a kid, which really piqued my interest. It turns out that he's related to none other than the most famous, or possibly the most accomplished guide families, respected guide families of all time anywhere in the world, and that is Steve Huff and his son Dustin Chad. And so I guess he's their cousin. Went down there, fished with him growing up. So he's familiar with the fishing and what we're doing out there, and how some of these techniques might be able to help us in a daily guide trip, or in, if you're super nervous about catching your first bonefish or permit or tarpon. A lot of people talk about their knees knocking and heart rate going through the roof. Well, Taylor's going to give us some ideas on how to handle that. And in addition to that, Taylor also has done some other seminars with people that I'm very interested in. One being Chris Henshaw's aerobic capacity, and another a deeper look into breath work through something called the art of breath. He's been to all of those, so I've been very interested in learning from him. And today we get to catch up with Taylor and learn about what his journey has been here, because he didn't just always start out as a breathing coach or a person that really is into fitness. He may have always been into fitness, but he had a different career. He had a different career path, and for many different reasons that we'll learn, that changed, and he decided to devote his life to this. I'm glad he did, because I've already learned a ton from Taylor and look forward to learning a whole bunch more. So stick around for a great conversation with XPT coach and all-around cool guy, Taylor Somerville. Taylor, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, Tom?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm really excited to talk to you, because I've been following you on Instagram, and I think, I'm not sure exactly how I came across your Instagram profile the first time. I think it was from a post. I know it was. It was from a post from XPT where you had received some kind of Coach of the Month award or some kind of a coaching award. And I noticed that you were, from the Southeast. So then I started checking out what you were doing, because I've been really interested in the XPT thing. Then the more that I dug into what you do, I got even more interested, because a couple of the other things that I'm very interested in are the art of breath and also aerobic capacity. And I noticed that you had been to different seminars or actually maybe even more than that at both of those things. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
And so how long have you been
me on?
Oh yeah, man. I'm really interested in talking to you, because the breath work for me over the last 4 years has been really, I don't really even know how to describe it. It's been profound in my life, and something that, I try a lot of different things. I mean, like the Bruce Lee philosophy of keep your thinking flexible and throw out what doesn't work and keep what does. And so over the years, I've tried a lot of different things. I keep small pieces of them into my daily activities or rituals, or the way I start the day or finish the day or whatever. But a lot of it just kind of goes away. I just find that it's not really working for me that much. Move on to something else. But the breath work has been something that has been incredibly helpful in so many ways. And so I want to find out, what all you're doing as you're teaching this. And I want to find out what you're doing that might be different than what I'm doing, and maybe start incorporating that. But before we even get there, I wanted to just learn a little bit more about you, because it appears that you were doing something else and then moved on and changed your whole career. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I was in the investment business for 15 years. The last 10 or 11, I was at a commodity trading company. Worked on the macroeconomic side, trading interest rates and helping the company with the macro, our chief economist, with a big picture of what was going on. So I was very much high stress, constant movement of, mental work, problems. But I was sitting at a desk from 6 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, and that, after a while, kind of wears on you. And about 4 years ago, I went through a divorce, and so I started going through a lot of life introspection. What am I doing? I have life plans just kind of turned upside down. So I just start looking at everything I was doing, and that's when I started with the breath work. Started kind of just regular meditation, mindfulness practices, and then I fell into the whole host of techniques, from Mark Divine and Seal Fit and box breathing to the Wim Hof Method. And then I heard Laird Hamilton and Gabrielle Reese and Brian McKenzie at the time, who all started XPT together, on a Tim Ferriss podcast. That would have been probably around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really, just hearing their philosophies, I really started following them and getting into a lot more deeper areas of the breath work, just doing it a lot more, just kind of looking up techniques, doing them, going to classes, started delving into the ice baths as much as I could. And as I was just doing all this, it changed kind of how I approach situations. I was always, pretty anxious, could have some anger issues, and I realized that in doing all these techniques, it kind of slowed my mind down and slowed my reaction function, where I would respond instead of react, instead of just flying off the handle. Just realized, maybe this is not as big of a deal as it was, and started just really delving into all those techniques. And as I'm doing all this, I kind of realized, I don't really want to be doing the investment stuff anymore. That I needed to get out, get more physically active, and really enjoyed learning all this stuff, and kind of wanted to spread what I was doing. I had decided probably over a year before I quit my job. So I quit October of 2017. And about a year before, I knew I was going to do something else. Wasn't sure what. I started writing a blog and newsletter, kind of a whole mindful approach, things that I did, morning routine, kind of just talking about stuff that had helped me, fitness, nutrition. And then I went to my first XPT experience. And in that, you go to Laird and Gabby's house. And there were 20 people, all type A, kind of high performing in their fields of, finance, doctors, lawyers, some pro athletes. And you really get thrown into the mix. They start you out with probably about a 45-minute breath session right out of the gate, which I'd never done one that long and been in a group setting like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wow, this is just extremely powerful right after that. And then you get into the pool workouts with the dumbbells underwater, really learning how to use your breath to slow your mind down. And then the ice. And then the ice experience there was a lot colder than any that I'd ever done. And in that fact, you really see, wow, just by slowing my inhales and exhales down, using my diaphragm, breathing through my nose, it can totally change my state of mind even quicker than I thought I could. So, and that, as doing that, I was like, I got to stay involved with these guys. I want to, keep in touch. And so I was kind of trying to plan my transition. They had some transitions. They decided to, they got PJ Nestler to come in, the director of performance, and he basically took all the stuff they had been doing for decades with their friends and self-experimentation and got the science behind everything, worked with different scientific advisors, Kelly Starrett to Andy Galpin and Patrick McKeown. They kind of built this certification program, and they asked me to be a part of the first group that got certified earlier this year. So I went and did that, and then from there, I've just kind of broken off, and I did the Art of Breath after that, which is a lot. It's very similar, but I'd say it's a little more athletic, performance driven to some extent. And going through that, I started teaching classes here in Memphis. Started my company this summer. It's called Symmetry, which is basically my philosophy mission is helping people deal with stress, realizing that there's a good stress and the bad stress. The chronic stress we have in life is not helpful, and that you have to learn to downregulate. You have to learn to, you can't just be going from the job to the gym, to the family life and just never sit down and take a little time for yourself. So just some simple techniques after your workouts to kind of kickstart your recovery, helping people with that, then helping go into businesses and help them with stress management, teach classes at yoga studios, gyms, a lot with the heat and the ice and just the breath classes, and then do some one-on-one work with people as well, helping them building them programs for kind of whatever they're, some people it's stress, some people it's, they want to climb Mount Everest. So it's kind of a whole host of things.
Yeah. I find it kind of interesting that it seems like from what you're saying, and maybe this is the case and maybe it's not, but it seems like you kind of came into all of these different techniques and the breath work really as a stress reliever. It's interesting for me. I found all of this stuff on a very similar path. I did SealFit Kokoro and was following the SealFit program for a long time and kind of found the box breathing and was incorporating that. It was good and great for a number of things, stress being one of them, just to kind of, and when you're doing that SealFit Kokoro, he instructs you many times, to use your breath because you've got this giant challenge is in front of you. And it was excellent for that. And he would stop the class down and we would do different breath things. So I was very interested in it from that point of view. But for me, it was almost more like it was a physical thing at first. Like I found that it helped my recovery. It helped me prepare for workouts. It helped me to kind of get my mind right a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was more physical until I started doing it for about a year. And then I realized, oh, well, while I'm getting physical benefits from this, way more mental
side.
Yeah, like way more mental.
Yeah.
although I have had some really remarkable success on a physical side that is measurable. And so I want to talk to you about that too. But
that's definitely, I came at it from the stress and mental side, and then incorporated in all the physical stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah, and I almost did it the
it
opposite.
was kind of the opposite. Yeah, exactly. And so last year I did the world's toughest mudder, which is a 24-hour obstacle course race. Mm-hmm. And I used a lot of the breath stuff in my training, getting ready to work out, getting ready for my runs, nasal breathing on all my long runs.
Let's talk about that. Like what does that look like? Like as you're using breath work to get ready, let's just go through in order of what you just said there. Like you're using breath work to get ready for your workouts. What kind of work are you doing when you're?
So I would do just some simple techniques to kind of activate my diaphragm, making sure I'm breathing in through my nose, breathing horizontally as opposed to vertically. So then when I do have stressful workouts and I have to start breathing through my mouth, I'm not breathing into the upper chest, which keeps you more stressed and taxes your neck and your shoulders and your secondary muscles that don't really need to be involved as much with breathing. And that's one of the troubles that a lot of people have. So I do, I might start out and do just some box breathing before workout. And then when I'm doing my warm-ups, just focusing on nasal breathing in through the nose, out through the nose. And as I pick up intensity, inhaling in through the nose, exhaling in through the mouth, just to blow off a little more CO2. And then if it gets real hard, I have to go mouth, but trying to keep it, all the long distance stuff that I would do, my 2-4 hour long training runs, I would do them all nasal pretty much. Just so that helps keep your heart rate under control. And what it really does is it teaches your body to more efficiently use oxygen. Helps build your CO2 tolerance, which is how your body uses oxygen, is relative to how much you can tolerate CO2 effectively. Because CO2 is what offloads the oxygen from your blood cells, from your red blood cells into your body. And so most people don't really understand that. They think it's, just breathing in oxygen. So it's really this relationship between the two. And so, using that and then some techniques to do, like when I would get done with working out, which is a simple one, is inhaling for 3 or 4 seconds, exhaling for 6 to 8, all through your nose. Like kind of after, as you slow down, laying on your back. And when you can double that exhale to inhale, it's really good in dropping your heart rate and kind of kicking in that parasympathetic state, allowing you to relax and recover. And so, doing techniques like that, and then using the ice and the heat weekly to help me recover on my rest days.
And when you're using the ice and the heat, like, one of the graduating steps that I took from the box breathing and the seal fit techniques, then I later read the Oxygen Edge by McEwen, which you had mentioned earlier, and incorporated a bunch of his things, including making my wife think I'm completely crazy by taping my mouth shut.
I did that too.
Yeah, she's like, "What are you doing? Oh my God, this is so bizarre."
And it's one of the best things you can ever do once you get over the craziness of it.
Yeah. Well, I still haven't convinced her yet, but it is definitely a little weird, and more than a few times I've woken up thinking that somebody is trying to kill me in my sleep, which isn't always a great feeling. But I definitely went down that whole path of trying to do things like the assault bike and doing lower. I think the assault bike was like too much. Like doing sprints on the assault bike, it was quickly I was over my capacity of nose breathing, but doing other things and staying with the nose breathing as long as possible, and got some great benefits to that. But as I got more into the breath work, then I discovered Wim Hof's work, and for me, like, I've known that there's great value in meditation. And I've known that there is great value in just quiet time. Call it what you want. Call it, clearing your head. Some people call it meditation. Some people just focusing on something. In yoga, they focus on the breath, which I think your input would be interesting here. But I think as you focus on the breath, basically you're focusing on that one thing that you can control, and other things just kind of fade away. And you just kind of get into this mindset of maybe it's meditation, maybe it's a clearing of the head, maybe it's just focusing on one thing. But for whatever reason, you get in this place where you're not really thinking about other things, and you're very comfortable. For me, I've tried all of those things, and or many of those things. I wouldn't say all of them, but I've tried a lot of different techniques for clearing the head, for mindfulness, for meditation. And, it's like, what am I going to eat after this? What all kinds of things creep in. I'm doing good for a little bit. And then it's kind of like, I probably need to make that phone call later, or I wonder what my wife's doing now. Whatever. Something creeps in there. And then I started that Wim Hof breathing without any question. On the first time that I tried it, I was like, wow, I'm pretty sure that's what people are talking about when they're talking about this meditation, and when they're talking about clearing your head, and when they're talking about a quiet mind. And for whatever reason, that just worked incredibly well for me. So I started doing it daily. Every morning I started doing that. And I've been doing it for like 4 years. And
nice.
I start my day out with that. I get up, I go down, and for those that may not know what the Wim Hof Method is, it's basically 30 to 50 really deep breaths and with complete exhale. And then at the very end, you're going to take one really deep breath, and you're going to exhale completely and fully, and then hold that breath out with no air in your lungs. And after doing this 30 to 50 breaths, depending on how you feel on that day, you can hold your breath for a tremendously long time. I mean, like a scary amount of time. Sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's 3 minutes, sometimes it's only a minute, depending on all the different factors that's going on in your life. I even find that whether I've eaten or just had a lot of water to drink or something can affect the breath hold. Then you hold as long as you can, and then you take one big deep breath in, you hold that for a while, and then you start the process over. And you do that for 3 or 4 rounds, and then I'll do another round of breathing, and then on a full breath, I'll do as many push-ups as I can. And
then, you do the push-up aspect of it? That's good.
Yeah. So that's how I'm warming up for every workout. And I do that in the morning right away, and then I hit my workout. And over time, I had some really crazy things happen. First of all, I haven't been sick 4 years. And that is one of the things that Wim Hof believes is happening, is that you're influencing your autonomic immune system and kind of protecting yourself from getting sick. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that I hadn't been sick in 4 years, and I feel great. And then on a physical, like a measurable physical thing, I do this 100 burpee workout where you'll just do 100 burpees for time as fast as you possibly can. And the burpees are the same every time. So you can kind of figure, you're doing exactly the same thing. So you're burpee, you're going to drop down to the ground, touch your chest, come back up, jump, and clap overhead. The jump is like on something like this. It's just enough to get your feet off the ground. You're not really
barely
jumping
off the ground.
on tires. Sometimes I'll do it onto a tire or onto some weights or something that you can
that
measure.
Makes it a little more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But the point is that you find something that you can repeat every single time, and then you can kind of judge yourself based upon that time. If you're doing it exactly the same this month as you did 3 months ago, did you do it faster or slower, or where are you? So I had this long period of basically no improvement. I got it down to in the high fives, and then I started doing this breathing. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and I had been doing this since, I'm keeping record of this. I'm looking at the chart right now, since 2009. Now we're talking about almost 10 years that I've been doing that particular workout every now and then, not that much, but I've got like 20 results. And there's been a slight improvement until I started doing that breathing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my performance improved drastically, and I dropped almost a minute off of that time.
Oh, that's great.
And nothing else changed except incorporating the breathing into my daily routine. And so when I saw that, I was like, wow. Okay, so on a physical side, this is doing more than I thought. And on a mental side, it's definitely helping. And so I just stuck with it. And I'm interested in doing some other types of breath work as well to maybe help with anything. I mean, I've seen a couple of things that you were talking about on an incredibly simplistic level. You had that thing on your Instagram where you traced your hand.
That's just a great little stress management tool, and something it's easy to teach kids with. Just, it's called Take 5, and you just tracing your hand, starting at your wrist, inhaling through your nose out to the tip of your thumb, exhaling on the way back, and you just trace out all your fingers like that. And within those 5 breaths, you can watch as your mind slows down, and the stress that you had or anxiety or whatever you're worried about kind of just will slowly go away. So with anything, it takes a little practice, getting used to, but it's just taking that time to be aware of how you're breathing it. And your brain and your breath, I mean, a lot of people say it, the hard breath, they say your brain your breath is the remote control to your brain. And that is so true, because when you go into the fight or flight, the sympathetic overdrive, typically you're breathing in your mouth, in your upper chest, rapidly, big, just all full mouth breathing. And as you slow that down with nasal inhales and exhales, you start activating the diaphragm. And when you slow your breath, your brain says everything's okay. It's all okay. And your brain will
actually
start
getting like a parasympathetic response.
And you'll start dropping into a parasympathetic response, and everything will kind of slowly go away. And like Stanford's doing a lot of research on this. The Huberman Labs, Brian McKenzie and Andrew Huberman, they've been doing a lot of research on different breathing protocols and stress and anxiety and stuff to kind of help you get prepared for meetings, stuff to kind of tone you down. Everybody's somewhat different, so they react a little different to each protocol. So you have to kind of figure out what works best for you. But it's kind of amazing just some of the things that you can do. And it's, with little as 5 minutes of practice a day, really.
Yeah.
Starting out with 5 minutes in the morning. And what I tell most people who are interested in starting is starting with the box breath. I think that is one of the most basic. And
so explain that for people that don't know.
It is Mark Devine popularized it with SEAL Fit. It's a technique he says they use in the Navy SEALs, and it's basically you have the 4 corners of the breath. You have an inhale, a hold, an exhale, and a hold. And in box breathing, you're breathing into an equal ratio of those corners, just like you would a box. So typically, most people start with 3 seconds. So you'll inhale through your nose for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, exhale for 3 seconds, hold for 3 seconds, and set a timer, 5 minutes, and just continually do that. And what you find too is people who have a lot of anxiety or can get really stressed out, they will get stressed out with the holds. And as the CO2 starts building, they have a lower CO2 tolerance. And as that starts building in their mind, their brains kind of start freaking out. And so they will have a little more stress response to that. But as you continually do it, your body gets a little less stressful and anxious and just kind of drops into it. And you have somewhat of that mindfulness approach, and you go from 3 seconds to 4 seconds to 5 to up to 10. And when you do that, you just really slow your brain down and really are able to just kind of relax. And it's a great way to get centered for the day and to just kind of explore your nervous system to some extent and see, okay, why is this freaking me out a little bit when all I'm doing is laying here breathing. I can just breathe regularly whenever I want to, but there's just something that's going on. So kind of like exploring that little part of your mind. and help figuring it out. And as you do some of this breath work, you will have things come up that your body holds a lot of stress and tension and your nervous system, and those things will start to come out. I've seen rather large men cry, doing some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just, you have flashbacks to child, it's pretty wild if you do a really, really long session with a lot of people and you get, involve some chanting and humming. It can get pretty intense.
Yeah, I bet it can. I haven't had that experience where nothing bad has come up. It's only been incredibly relaxing, putting me in this incredibly blissful state. Almost like
that's the way it is.
You hear like euphoria. People talking about, it's a euphoria. It's almost like when you hear people talking about their experience with drugs or whatever, and they're trying to describe it, and it's like, well, you don't even need that. Like, I can do that in 5 minutes. Like
getting high on your own supply.
Yeah, it doesn't last very long, but it's there. So one of the things, like a lot of the people that listen to this particular podcast are outdoors people. And the first time that we made contact, I was interested in this mobile sauna, the fire and ice thing that you have, because I'm in the middle of building my sauna, and it's something that I really like. I like the sauna, and then I like the ice as well. And so I wanted to see what you were doing to kind of put these together. And so I made contact with you, and you have this mobile sauna, like a barrel sauna on a trailer, and then you have the ice baths, and you take that to different places and like CrossFit gyms or businesses or wherever you're going, yoga studios, and let people kind of experience this. So I was interested in maybe having you come over, do some sort of a course with me and my guys. And as we first started talking, I don't even know how it came up, but you were like, "Oh, you spent some time in Florida," and I was like, "Yeah, a lot of time in Florida." He's like, "You know the Duck Key area. I grew up in Duck Key, or I spent a lot of time there." And I'm like, "Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I used to do some fishing down there." And then I'm thinking, well, that's weird. Of all the places that you would say that you were doing fishing, like, why would like Duck Key? That's interesting. So do you have a connection with Hawks Cay? And you're like, no, I got some family members that are guides down there. So I'm like, okay, guide on Duck Key. Chances are I probably know who they are. And a little more digging, and it comes out that you're related to the Huffs, and you grew up going down there fishing with Steve Huff and his sons, Dustin, and you're still going down there, right? And fishing?
I haven't been down there in years, but I grew up. So my grandfather, Crawford Adams, I think he might have had the first plot of land on Duck Key. He was one of the first houses, and built in the 70s. So he was down there. We would go visit him, and then Steve married my mom's oldest sister, and Chad and Dustin were around, and so we all, going down there, grew up just fishing with them and fishing with the family on Duck Key. Loved it. It's been years since I've been back down there. Keep wanting to go down there and go visit again. I probably hadn't been in 10 years fishing down there. Wow. But it was a great place. I loved going there my whole life, and hope to get back there sometime soon.
Yeah. Well, as people tell me a lot of times, "Oh, I used to go down there and go fishing." I'm thinking, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And then we used to go bone fishing. I'm thinking, "Oh yeah, really?" But then as you put it together and you realize that you were fishing with Steve Huff, you definitely were. you were definitely doing it right. The man's a complete legend, and his boys are also doing incredibly well.
Yeah, they're doing well now.
But the funny thing about the fishing and talking about this, because we have like spear fishermen and people that like to lobster and people that like to do all of these other things, fishing in tournaments, fishing in different situations. And like, as I got into this breath work, I started to use it like on the water. Like, there are a lot of times where, let's just say, you've never caught a bonefish before, and you've built this thing up in your head of this giant thing, and you hear people talk about it all the time. Oh, a permit showed up, or a bonefish showed up, or tarpon, or whatever it may be, blue marlin, and my knees just started knocking, and I couldn't even cast, and I got so nervous that I just started breathing really heavy. And I've certainly had that happen, like lots of times, where you want to catch this fish so badly, or maybe it's a deer, and you've been practicing your archery, and we're right in the middle of archery season right now.
Yeah.
You're practicing and practicing and practicing, and you can do this really with your eyes closed in your driveway at 30 yards, but then you're out there and it's a little colder, and then here's the one that you're looking for. Next thing you know, your heart is just racing, and it's this stress response, and it's the same kind of stress response that people are getting from when they see a number pop up on their phone, and they know it's their boss, or it's they're a salesman, and they know it's somebody that they really don't want to talk to. And then here's this response of just this overwhelming fight or flight, like you're talking about. All of a sudden your breath goes super shallow. You're freaking out, and you are never going to respond very well in that situation. So like in that situation, what would you suggest for people to do that find themselves in that situation? I mean, on a fun side of it, like when you want to catch this fish so bad, the tournament's riding on it, or you're just out there fishing or whatever, or like in a business side, like when they see that number pop up on their phone and they just immediately go, oh boy, this is not going to be good.
Matt, it's to, like I've said, slow those inhales and exhales down as much as you can. Focus on breathing in through the nose. Try to inhale for 4 seconds, pause for a second, exhale for 6 to 8. It's a little longer than you're inhaling, and give 5 breaths like that. You can start slowing down, especially if you've been to have a daily practice. But when you're just starting, if you can focus on slowing your breathing down and inhaling through the nose, not breathing with your mouth. If you inhale through your nose, exhale through your nose, and that is the quickest way to slow the mind down. Start slowing your heart rate down. When you really get those exhales to 7-8 seconds, your heart rate will start slowing down pretty rapidly.
Yeah.
Like that. That's one of the things I'll kind of work. We talked about working out. When I work out, sometimes I'll have different workouts where I'll have a rest period. Well, my rest period will be, I've got to drop my heart rate to a certain beat, and I'll use my breath and try to drop it, under 100 beats a minute if it's a super high intense workout, and try to get it to 100 beats, and then I go for round 2. Kind of,
yeah,
it's all about
cool.
slowing those inhales and exhales down, and kind of using the breath there as just a variable in training.
So in that training, the whole purpose of that training, or one application of that training, I guess, is so that when you do have this response, no matter how much you're practicing and no matter how good at this you get, you're still going to have that.
You still have them.
Yeah,
we're all human.
That's exactly right. You're going to be like, oh, I forgot to do this. I forgot to do that. Or, the phone call that you're not expecting comes in, and you have that moment of panic. But what I've found, and I'm sure, or I think that you might agree, is that the more you're practicing and the more that you're incorporating this, it's just like anything else. The better you get at it,
the easier it gets.
Right, and the more you can, it might at first you freak out, your heart rate goes sky high, and it might take 10 minutes at first when you're first getting started. Whereas as a practiced person, it might take 2 breaths.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's exactly the way I look at it.
And then you're able to just look at it like, I don't know, like your grandmother always told you, like, just take a deep breath, everything will be all right.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Like, they knew all along.
It's going to be all right.
Yeah, but if you can, I don't know, whenever you're freaking out, whether that's fishing, and that fish that you really want to catch shows up, or deer hunting, or business, or whatever the situation is, you're going to perform better. Yeah, but you're going to perform better if you are relaxed and you're not thinking like, this is it. this is, like this is my only chance. Like if you
No,
just
yes.
relax and you make that cast like you've made it 100,000 times before, it's
You'll be
not
fine.
difficult. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're all freaked out and breathing so fast, you're probably going to screw it up even worse than you thought you were going to.
Yeah, your brain's going to start going out of control, looking at all the awful scenarios that might happen, and if that's the breathing can help combat that, and it makes it a whole lot easier.
So have you found good ways to really teach a lot of these techniques? I know that we've talked about a couple, but like I know that you're going around to a lot of different people, and like what I've seen on your website is you're going to athletes and CrossFit gyms and stuff like that. That seems like kind of an easy audience. Like those are people that are already in an environment that they're trying to improve themselves. They've probably seen how mobility and hydration and nutrition have helped them really, and it's really obvious. And so somebody like you comes in there, okay, so breathing, maybe I can incorporate this. They're probably really open to these techniques. But, some of these breathing techniques, if you've never seen them before, pretty weird, honestly. I mean, like even my friends that have been working out with me for 10 years and they think it's weird. Even, even when I'm like, no, man, listen, I'm telling you. So
yeah,
I've done a lot of different things and brought a lot of different things into my group, but this has been one that people have been slow to jump on the bandwagon, because it's just, especially like the Wim Hof breathing, it's really strange. So I'm just wondering, like when you're going to some of these businesses and maybe people that aren't trained versus the CrossFit gyms and yoga studios where you have kind of an accepting, open audience there, what's been your experience like with exposing people to these techniques?
There's always a couple people who just aren't going to buy into it because that's kind of the way the world works. But typically what I do is I'll start you off with 20 to 30 minutes of breath work, have people lie on their backs and let them experience what's going on, like how you can use the breath to change your mind, and how it just changes your whole body.
When you see that,
you become
like
deeply relaxed.
When you start somebody for 30 minutes that's never done this before, and you had this experience with Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese, do you see people just get up and are just like blown away and completely in a different mindset?
A lot of the times, yeah. Some people will get really stressed out throughout the process, and I'll tell them going into it that you're going to feel a whole host of sensations. You might get really tingly. You might feel like you're going to pass out. You might get stressed and anxious, and if ever it's too much, just resume normal breathing and kind of jump back in whenever you want. But most of the times by the end of it, I'll kind of tell people you can open your eyes and come to. Sometimes it'll be a few minutes before anybody will want to get off the ground. They're just laying there looking at you like, what in the world? How did you just do that?
In euphoria. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, and in a calm, euphoric state. And some point throughout that journey, they might have been very stressed out, because we do some of the long breath holds, and people who haven't done the long breath holds, they're shocked at how long they held the breath. At the end of it, I'll tell them how long we, did the longest one. They'll be really shocked by it. Some of the different techniques, I'll incorporate a lot of humming and kind of hissing exhales, different, techniques that when you are with a group of people and you hear it, it just makes it the whole vibration. It's kind of an interesting aspect of it.
Different yoga classes that I've been to over the past have done that, like the humming and the
and the humming is a great way that helps your so one of the things about breathing through your nose is you release nitric oxide, which helps give you an immune response, but helps also push the oxygen throughout your body and proliferates all your muscles. And humming is one of the ways to also incorporate that, which kind of gives it a little extra boost and gives you some more nitric oxide. But you also get that whole body vibration, and when you're with 20 other people doing it, it can get pretty cool feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's, by the end of it. And so then I'll go over, and after I put them through an experience, then we will talk about, the science behind it, like why you need to breathe through your nose, all the benefits of nasal breathing and the problems with chronically breathing through your mouth, and how most people, especially in today's society, there's a lot of mouth breathers, from the way you hold your cell phone, which with a forward head posture kind of closes your airway, makes people breathe through their mouth, staring at your computer all day long. It's kind of it starts when we're kids and we're, put in schools and we're sitting down all day, and we kind of lose a lot of our mobility and movement practices, and we lose our breathing capabilities. So it's kind of trying to reprogram all that into them.
So for somebody that didn't know the importance of the nasal breathing, first of all, that book by
Oxygen Advantage, it's one of the best. Yeah.
is a highly suggested book. But give them a little synopsis of why that's so important.
So basically, it's the main reason is that's what our nose was made for. It cleans and filters out all the air. You filter out 95+% of pathogens and allergies, stuff like that, when you breathe through your nose, where if you breathe through your mouth, you're not filtering any of that out. So you also get some immune cell responses that come in and get activated by breathing through your nose. There's just a recent paper out that's kind of interesting, talks about when you breathe through your nose and you have allergen stuff come in, that your immune cells swarm it and attack it. And it's like basically like a swarm of bees coming in and attack it, where you don't get any of that when you breathe through your mouth. It also helps activate your diaphragm, which is much harder to do mouth breathing, because when you mouth breathe, you typically just breathe into your upper chest using your neck and shoulders. Like tell people to take a big breath, they're typically going to rise, bring their shoulders up towards their ears, try to expand out their chest. Well, that's pretty much the exact wrong way to do it. When you're taking a big breath, you want to think breathing in general horizontal, not vertical. So you want your chest and your side to expand out horizontal fashion with, kind of a 360-degree barrel of your chest, not moving your shoulders and your neck and your traps really not much at all. The other thing it does, breathing through your nose, it helps increase your CO2 tolerance. There's less oxygen coming in and out, but you actually will get about 10 to 20% more oxygen uptake by breathing into your nose, because the CO2 tolerance has to do with what's called the Bohr effect. And so typically, if you're just breathing in through your mouth and out of your mouth, you're breathing in oxygen and breathing out a lot. You're not really utilizing that oxygen properly. So when you use your nose, you have higher CO2 in your body, which will put that, as I explained earlier, kind of helps proliferate it, drops it off the red blood cells into your muscles and keeps it flowing properly. And those are some of the main benefits. And when people breathe through their mouth and are over breathing too much oxygen, it causes issues with anxiety, asthma, insomnia, lots of headaches, cardiovascular issues, asthma. So it's one of the easiest ways is to kind of combat that, is just by practice of awareness of how you're breathing throughout the day. That's another thing I tell people doing classes is, how are you going out through the day? Just be aware of how you're breathing. When you start to get stressed, watch your patterns. Are you breathing through with your mouth into your upper chest, or are you going to, try to breathe through your nose? So just kind of bringing that awareness at first. And with the awareness, once people become aware of it, I've found that then they kind of want to look a little bit more into it, because they're like, wow, I do see what's going on here. See it in my everyday life, sitting in my chair, sitting at the computer screen. And so it's, once you go from there, that opens up people to want to learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then I'll some people work with one-on-one. There's a lot of people have mechanical problems. They haven't been using their diaphragm in years. So there's stuff that you can work to get that unstuck, and, helps open up your hips. And, the breathing is having a proper breathing pattern and getting that diaphragm working properly really helps, keep your spine intact, helps just overall mobility. It's one of the key factors involved in that as well.
Do you think there's anything to when you breathe and you're expanding out your chest and you're filling up your lungs? you're doing that with muscles. So,
Yeah.
and they're tiny little muscles, but they are muscles nonetheless. Do you think there's anything to kind of incorporating this breathing and just like working out and getting stronger, that you're increasing your respiratory system's effectiveness because you're everything's getting stronger? Is there anything to
Yes.
that? I've always
I
thought
think,
that, but I don't know any science behind it or anything.
yeah, I think there's definitely part of that because your diaphragm's a muscle too. And if it's not getting any work, it's just going to start atrophying and get stuck.
Right.
And that's one of the things that Wim Hof does is it really gets all those muscles activated and moving and helps build that up.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely a big aspect.
As would just cardiovascular exercise. Like, if you don't exercise at all and you never get your heart rate over 115, you're not breathing deeply. Like you're just, if all you do is walk and you never get that response of a really deep, a lung burner of a workout, I just don't feel like you're ever getting to the place where you're
not pushing it.
Yeah. And then when you do that regularly, you don't have to stay there very long, but when you're doing that regularly, I don't know. I always think so much of everything. And one of my philosophies on almost everything is use it or lose it. Like
that's right.
You have elasticity in your lungs and your muscles and everything. And if you don't use that, then they're not going to perform for you. And then if you start to use it, then, you're going to be able to do that on demand, like anytime you want to, you can do this. But I don't know. I mean, that's just like,
no, I agree with that.
Bro science, totally. But it just seems like the way, and it seems like I've gotten much stronger in my respiratory system since I've been doing this, and then therefore it's more easy. I'm able to take a deep breath more easily when I need it in the
when you need to
in the workout, right? Like,
and one of the things in the working out, just so people who are constant runners or whatever, you're running and you might not be focusing on your breathing, and if you still already have that cardiovascular aspect where you're a good runner and you can go for days, but then you add this in, I think it gives you an extra gear that you just didn't know you had.
Like
it allows you to work harder.
Yeah.
And lets your body more efficiently uses oxygen. And when you can go, they say you can go up close to 90% of your max heart rate with just nasal only breathing, which I think a lot of top athletes probably are 80ish, but you can still get up there with nasal only breathing to go pretty hard. And then when you have to go and start breathing through your mouth, it just gives you an extra gear that most people don't have.
Yeah.
And you can just keep pushing.
That's interesting. And when
it takes, that takes some work, when you just start doing this, just like when you start that practice of, I'm going to, on my runs and just breathe through the nose. Most people, you freak out. I mean, when I first started doing it, the first 400 meters, I was like, oh man, I think I'm drowning. And as you build on it, it gets easier and easier, and your performance will dip for a month, and then it'll just come roaring back, and you'll be able to run faster than you ever really could have imagined.
And you're saying that you were doing that, and well, let's say on first, I was thinking about what you were saying. Like I started working on that too, on runs and stuff like that, and I noticed that I really needed to slow down. So you might be running a 8-minute mile or 7-minute mile with the way that you're normally doing it. And when you first start incorporating nasal only breathing, now you're running a 9-minute mile, and you're like, I hadn't run a 9-minute mile since I was a kid. Like this is too slow. But not every run is like that. I was doing it like 1 or 2 a week, and then just incorporating that nasal breathing, and then then going back to regular runs and doing whatever. And I found myself breathing out of my nose more and more and more often, and being conscious of it more. And
that's right.
And I did see some big advantages to that. So when you were, let's talk about this world's toughest mudder, because that's also been something that has been on my bucket list of sorts. Tell people what that is. if they don't know?
World's Toughest Mudder. So it's Tough Mudder. They put on the obstacle course races all over. And this one is a 24-hour race. It's a 5-mile loop. You do as many times as you can. I did it last year, and it was in Las Vegas, on Lake Las Vegas. So they are, getting you in and out of water.
What time of year was that?
Throughout this trip. It was November. So it starts off, and they just did it this year. This year was in Atlanta, right outside of Atlanta. They moved it. I think it had been in Vegas for 6 years. But so it starts out, and it's really hot, and you are, in the desert. But if you aren't in some type of wetsuit cover by the time night falls, most people will end up with hypothermia, something like that. You're running a good portion of it in a wetsuit, and you are just doing a 5-mile loop over and over. And they kind of start rolling on how they open up the obstacles. So the first couple of loops, you're just running. And then you have a little pit that you can come in, have a pit crew. They'll give you, whatever your fuel is. And then you have to come in and make some changes. But it's 24 hours, and it's one of the hardest things I ever did. And, they started us out, and you were in and out of water. So once it got cold, you just kind of, you're just wet and cold the whole time. Then they take you up a mountain effectively, and then back down, and then they get you into all the hard obstacles are at the very end, all the real grip intensive, strength intensive obstacles. So as the night wore on, you were just failing those over and over again, and they had penalties, which would be an extra 400, 800 meters, or climbing up and down a little zigzag of a hill. So when I did it, I did 11 laps. It was 55 miles officially, and I probably added another 5 to 10 in penalties, something like that. I would assume, and it was a great experience. Will I ever do it again? I don't know, but I'm glad I did it, and it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. The first time
it was a lot of hard work. It was a lot of fun.
55 miles in 24 hours. That's really good when you combine mud and obstacles and cold and penalty laps and all of that. So how did you finish? Did you?
What place?
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
That obstacle racing has become like a real
like the
thing.
guy who won it, they did 110. They doubled me.
Wow.
And the cool thing about it is you're out there, I had a friend of mine doing it. It was my girlfriend's brother. We did it together. My girlfriend was in my crew, and his wife was in his crew. So we had 2 tents right next to each other. We have actually had just one big tent. We kind of, we did a lot of the training together, and we did a good portion of the race together. But then you're also out there, and then the pros come running by. So, they'll help you help them, whatever obstacles, because some of the obstacles you're not going to get by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have help
Mm-hmm.
on getting up over some of these, especially after you've been going for hours on end.
Right.
And you're just physically spent. And so you gotta, there's some teamwork aspects involved, which is always fun and helpful. And it's a good experience. It's a good community. Now that the place they have in Atlanta we did the 8-hour race that in the same spot, and it's just like the Georgia red clay. It is gross.
Mm-hmm. I think I might have done one in that, just a regular Tough Mudder in that same location. Is it like a motocross track?
No, it's somebody's farm.
Okay.
I think it's
nearby. We had a Tough Mudder. Well, we had a Tough Mudder nearby there somewhere, and it was on this motocross track, and it was the red clay, and that stuff gets so slick.
Man, it gets so slick, and it's just so hard to move through. So I know this year the times were down a good bit, the distance was down a good bit for people.
Yeah.
And it was really, really cold. I want to say it was like 32 degrees the whole time.
Yeah.
When we did it, yeah, that's one of the things that really didn't affect me as much as the cold, is because I had done so much, heat and ice, the contrast there. I was kind of used to the cold.
Mm-hmm.
So the cold did not get me near as much as just the overall poundage of moving your body for that long.
So how did you train for something like that? Did you have any idea how far what a race you were training for. I mean, you're looking at something like that. And you're going, okay, for 24 hours, how many miles could that possibly be? So how were you training for that? Were you training for more than 55 miles?
No, I wanted to get 50 miles, but my training was a lot of, I incorporated a lot of CrossFit workouts. I really did not run that much comparatively. Like, I'm kind of the type that I don't want to run hundreds of miles a week because I know my body's going to break down doing that, where I can do a lot of CrossFit workouts, get a lot of capacity built doing that. But I would incorporate the pool training from XPT. I did that once a week all summer long. And that helps you build an aerobic capacity without doing any damage to your joints and very minimal impact. Then I would have one day where I ran long. And so, anywhere from 2 to 5 hours, really. I think probably at the very end, I was out here running, and I would just run the trails around at our parks around Memphis and some of the places elevation. So doing a lot, that was kind of just not walking really, but really slow runs on some of them. And then a lot of grip intensive training too. A lot of, we have this thing here called River Fitness down by the river. Got a bunch of stairs and hills, but there's stations with monkey bars and things like that. So we would go down there on Saturday mornings and, do like 7 miles on that, and then get as many rounds on the monkey bars as we can do, just constantly hanging from the bar, hanging from rings after workout. I think after about every workout I did, I would hang for a couple minutes.
Yeah, or I'll tell you what, man,
grab the top of dumbbells and walk and hold dumbbells. Just a lot of grip work.
My experience with that on that Tough Mudder that I did, which wasn't a 24-hour one, it was just a regular one. But I think it was like 12, 13 miles. And
yeah, those are hard too.
We trained just like you're talking about with lots of grip work, and we were planning on doing all this stuff. And then we get there and you get that red mud on your hands, and then you're wet. And dude, I don't think it matters how strong you are. Like, you're going up there and grabbing like one of those bare metal rings that they have, or the bare metal bars, and it's like you might as well have oil on your hands.
It makes it pretty difficult.
It's like, whoop, done. Better you just start going on your penalty lap, I'm sure, because there's just no chance. Some of those.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that stuff is so slippery.
It's difficult, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of track workouts too. I always like incorporating that.
So that's another thing with the track workouts. Are you following what's your feeling on the aerobic capacity?
So that's what I did, a lot of the aerobic capacity type workouts. And I like them a lot. I haven't done them in a while.
So where did you attend that class?
I did that in Cookeville at CrossFit Mayhem.
Yeah.
And that was a good class. And there, a lot on manipulating your rest periods and kind of learning your own cadence and speeds, and running out for 15 seconds and then having to run back in and basically trying to land on the same spot where you started.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff like that, which is interesting, and figuring out your own pacing. A lot about figuring out your own pacing. And I thought it was a great course that I would suggest anybody. It's a day-long course. Doesn't cost a lot.
Have you gotten much faster by using those workouts?
Well, I actually did the course after I'd done all the training, and then it helped me a lot when I was training. I think I got a lot faster doing them. Now I kind of hurt my back over the summer, so I hadn't run as much. Running's about one of the only things. So my running at the moment is probably one of the slowest it's been in a while. I can do everything faster, the ski erg and the rower, than I used to be able to, but my running is probably slowest. But I would say, it helped me a lot using his workouts.
We've been incorporating that, or we were for a while before I had an injury too. I have a chronic calf injury that just keeps coming back. And when it happens, it's not like you can tough it out and move through it. I mean, I can't even really walk very well when it happens, and it usually happens very unexpectedly. And I don't know, it's been one of the most frustrating training injuries that I've ever had, because I never know when it's coming.
Yeah.
and I usually start feeling really good about my running, and then pow, and then I'm out for a week, and then I can slowly start running again, and then. But anyway, we were doing those Chris Henshaw aerobic capacity workouts every week for quite a while, where he calls for running a mile and then running a 400, and then you determine the difference there, and you set up your whole program based upon those 2 times. And he is really an interesting guy, and that training is incredibly effective, but also
and it's
quite
not
contrary.
Something you have to do a lot.
Yeah, but don't you think it's kind of like, for me anyway, a lot of it was contrary, and like to what conventional thinking or whatever. If you want to run fast, in the race, you need to run fast in training. And a lot of the times he's like, no, you need to run exactly this fast, and then you need to rest exactly this long.
Exactly this much. Yeah,
right.
That's how
based
he is.
Based upon your, like he's got those benchmark times of a mile and 400, and then based upon that, he sets up this whole program, and then you come back.
Which one you want to improve on,
right?
And figuring out there's a certain ratio of how you're supposed to drop. I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it was supposed to be like 7%, but they found that nobody was really at the 7%. That it's more like 10 to 15 or something. I can't remember.
The whole thing that he's doing is I find fascinating, because he's working with regular athletes, and then he's working with some of the greatest athletes that have ever been on the earth, like Rich Froning and Jason Khalipa and Matt Frazier, 3 CrossFit Games athletes that have benefited greatly from what he's doing. And I heard this one interview with him, and he was like, I was going to go work with Rich, and I didn't know, like, he was really nervous, because he's like, I mean, I could make him worse. I could make him worse. And in CrossFit is a sport that it demands that you're good at so many different things. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I like about it so much is that it's very similar to fishing, being a professional fisherman. You've got to be able to catch all these different fish. You've got to be able to do it under all these different weather conditions. So if you put too much time and effort into one, the others start to suffer. And it's the same thing with CrossFit. Like if you're weak at weightlifting and you're good at everything else, and you spend all of your time on weightlifting, well, you're going to come back and you're going to find that you were good at everything else, but now that has suffered. And so that's one of the most challenging things about it, is that you have all of these different things that you have to be pretty good at, or at least competent. And then when you start to place your focus on one of your weaknesses, you realize, oh boy, now I have 2 weaknesses, because I have neglected this over here for a while. Now I don't have that skill anymore, or these are, these double unders are more difficult than they used to be, or I'm not as fast at this, or I'm not as strong, or I've lost mobility, or any of these things. And so when Henshaw was talking about that experience with Rich Froning, it was like, I could make him worse. And so he's really nervous about that. But what he found was that he didn't make him worse, that through his training, he got better than ever, and other things besides, that people think are not connected to running got better, like his Olympic weightlifting. He got stronger. And he was explaining, he's like, you take an athlete like that, like a Rich Froning or a Jason Khalipa or Matt Frazier, there is no problem with motivation. There is no problem with getting more in. These people will go until, that's not the problem. The problem comes in purging the lactic acid and getting waste products out of the body fast, super fast. And that's what he seems to have been able to do, make them more efficient by giving them a larger drain to get everything out rather than put more in. Like intensity and hard work, that's not the problem. That's not what those guys are lacking.
That's right.
It's the ability to purge that lactic acid and keep going and stay at a high intensity over a longer period of time by getting rid of the lactic acid. And in his training, man, I don't know. There's a lot of things that are kind of contrary to it that, you're thinking, really, that's what's going to make me better or make anybody better? But man, he's been, had his stuff put to the test. I'm very impressed with what he does.
It's great stuff. I enjoy it. And he's the other good thing about his seminars, he's an incredible storyteller.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you get a lot of those stories about guys like Froning and Khalifa and everything. So it's good to hear all those stories. And then doing it in Cookville, they come out and work out with you too. Froning came and did a workout with us. It was a lot of fun.
That's cool, man. I got to spend a little bit of time with him a while back when we were doing another show called Fitness Truth, and he was on it a number of times. But he's a remarkable dude, and has certainly a remarkable athlete, and he has remained a very humble and very likable person. He's a good person, I think. Anyway, well, man, I appreciate you spending this time with us and letting us learn a lot more about all the breath work and all the stuff you've got going on. If people wanted to follow what you're doing, read more about what you're doing, maybe attend one of your classes, what would they do?
My website is symmetry.live, and I'm on Instagram at symmetry.live and at TSOMERV.
Okay.
And that's the best way to find me and put out schedules, events, what I'm doing. Not sure when this will be out, but I'll doing a full XPT workshop down on 30A in Florida, Rosemary Beach area, right before Christmas, December 22nd.
Really?
A lot of stuff around Memphis now.
Is when you do one of those XPT things down there, do you have any of the other instructors come in?
So there's a coach that lives down there, named Sean Miller. He's on 30A, and so I'll be down in that area for Christmas. So I got some family living down there, so I'm going to bring the sauna, and he's got to set up a pool. And so we'll do breath work, heat and ice, pool workout, kind of the whole 9 yards.
Man, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, be a 4 or 5 hour event on Saturday. Started at 8 in the morning and into a little afternoon probably.
Oh, that'll be great. I know a lot of people that listen to this frequent that area one way or another.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Well, I hope that you and I can get together and train at one time.
Yeah, definitely.
Sometime in the future. And listen, man, until then, just keep spreading the word. And
thanks, Tom.
Really impressed with what you're doing, and certainly have always been impressed with Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese. They seem to be
great.
Really on it and know what they're doing. But
they're great people and great coaches.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Taylor, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And
if
you guys are interested, look him up. All right. See ya.
Talk to you later.
Thank you to Taylor. Thank you to Waypoint TV for helping us to bring you this episode. And thanks to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for sending me those emails at podcast@saltwaterexperience.com. I get them. I read them. And I do everything I can to respond to you. We've gotten some really incredible ones. Also, some awesome reviews on iTunes lately. Thank you for that. And if you do have a second, stop by iTunes and drop us a rating or review. That really helps. So anyway, until next week, I'll see you out there.